Good morning. Well, it's morning for me. It is 8:45. And I am coming in hot. We are in no childcare summer, even though this is going to air in September. I feel like that's the energy I'm bringing today. And today I am joined by Olivia and Annika from the Canadian Perinatal Mental Health Trainings. And we are going to be talking about gentle parenting. Maybe we're going to go talk about the dark side of gentle parenting. And we're going to talk about all the ways that sometimes we don't do it the way that Instagram tells us that we should do it. So, I love to start with fun facts about my guests, and I would love for you guys to share something that is not about motherhood or not about what you do for work, whether that work is at home or work at an establishment. My fun fact that I like to share with people is that in the pandemic, my anxiety was really high and I could not take reading new things. And so I just reread Harry Potter for like 3 years over and over and over again. I think I read it 5 times, all 6 books, just back to back. That's all I would read. It was very predictable. It was a very lovely way to fall asleep. That's just what I did. Oh, Olivia or Annika, who wants to share their fun fact first?
I can start first. My name is Annika. My fun fact for today is I love reading books, but I don't buy books at all, ever. My library, my public library, is literally my library. So if books disappear and I want to reread them again, I'm really upset by that because I'm just like, you got rid of my book. Don't do that. And also, I have never bought anything of Amazon, which I think is really great. I have to say, my husband does the buying, but it's very rarely. And I will sometimes say, maybe we need, but he is the one that actually initiates and goes like, I don't do that. I hardly buy anything online. I'm Dutch, so I'm cheap. I don't buy things. That's me.
I love that you have never bought anything on Amazon. Really, truly.
Yeah.
I've never done
Yes.
that. Yeah. And not anywhere else either. I don't always think that's a good thing because I want to buy things for myself. So I have gift cards and stuff, but I never spend them on myself. In the end, I just give them to people as like, oh yeah, your birthday gift for somebody. So I'm really bad at that.
Okay, note to self: don't buy Annika a gift card.
The gift card. She's just going to regift it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very happy with it, but very uncomfortable because I have to think about things. Can't spend it at the library, so
Okay. Next time I will get the librarians to like throw you a party, and I'll be like, I'll sneak in a little bit of celebration for your birthday that way. So my fun fact is that when I was in grade 8, I became the Scarborough shot put champion for the whole city. So that is the highlight of my athletic career. But I threw a metal ball the furthest than any other grade 8 girl in Scarborough.
Amazing.
yay.
Amazing. Do you have like a good throwing arm, or was it just like coincidence that you happened to throw it the farthest?
100% coincidence. I did no training. The way that it worked is that there was a track and field day, and if you threw the furthest at track and field day at my school and you went on to the next level, I went on to the next level. I threw it the farthest there too, and then I went on to the final level, and I threw it the farthest there too, with absolutely no form training. Like that's really what the magic of the story is that I was just like destined to win the Scarborough champion that year.
Amazing.
I need a T-shirt now with I know the Scarborough.
I know.
Scarborough champion from
Yeah,
I don't even want to say
champion.
what it is. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Oh. So, gentle parenting. Dot, dot, dot. Let's talk about it. What are your first thoughts when you even hear the word gentle parenting?
This is a very quiet moment here. My first thoughts, and when I hear it, usually when I hear people, because I'm also parent, I also do parent coaching. Usually people come with gentle parenting, and then I'm just like, okay, you have ideas about this already, and I don't really know if that's going to align with my ideas. If they're saying, but we do everything gentle parenting, and I'm always like, what is that for you?
Mm,
What does that
yes.
mean? What book did you read? Which Instagram account did you follow?
Yes.
I want to know that.
Yes.
I don't, it's, I have also, it's interesting when we all went quiet, I also have a bit of a like, ugh, feeling when somebody says like, I am a gentle parent. Um, because it does feel very loaded. I'm always like, what does that mean to you? Much like Annika said. But I tell everybody that I'm like, I am not a gentle parent. I don't know that I have a word to describe my parenting, but that was not something that like ever really resonated for me. Because I'm like, I'm a lot of things in parenting. Like sometimes I'm gentle, sometimes I'm dysregulated, sometimes I'm fun. Like I can just be a lot of things, but I can't always be gentle.
So maybe it would be helpful because I think a lot of people find sanctuary in the term gentle parent. It gives them a roadmap a bit, maybe when they feel confused or don't really know how to break the cycle from how they were parented to how they would like to parent. And I think gentle parenting can answer a lot of those questions or curiosities. And so for clarity's sake, maybe we should define what gentle parenting looks like, or the philosophies or the tactics that are still within gentle parenting that we might still use and love, but maybe it's like the label of gentle parenting that gives that like gut wrenching, like, ooh, I don't, like, what does it mean? I don't know. Do I have to do it all the time? Is there a right way? Like that piece of it.
And that's what my major difficulty with gentle parenting, because it is very clear about what it is not, but it's not very clear about what it is. So anything that is like, oh, it looks aggressive, it looks violent, I don't like the way that this parent is talking to their child, is immediately then labeled as, oh, that's wrong, and I'm doing gentle parenting. I would never do that. And I have a very hard time understanding that, like, what is gentle parenting. And I feel for a lot of people it's that 5% of time that you just really feel that you're in your parenting flow, and that you're just like, oh my gosh, I had this amazing answer for my kid, and I was so calm when they were going through that emotion and those feelings. But it is almost an ideal that lives somewhere outside of us. It's not really inside of us. And it's very much what other people have made it up to be and how we understand it to be. And like Olivia says, that gentle, I don't want to be gentle all the time. That is like I feel like a gentle woman, like you cannot address the hard stuff. You cannot just call out things. And that's not really who I am. Even though I do align with a lot of gentle parenting, I'm just always, sometimes I feel that, um, from my understanding, because that's why I'm very careful, it's sometimes I feel like it infantilizes kids as well, because we have to tread so carefully around big things. Like we want to address it, but we have to address it with a certain voice. And then say, oh, I understand that you're working through this right now. And you can't just say, this sucks. This is really hard. We're all having a hard time here.
Yes. And Annika, I think, but my oldest is 9, and he actually gets really angry when I talk like that. Like, so I think there's also like certain temperaments that also, um, what gentle parenting is out in the algorithm. When your kids are old enough, they actually, some children will get really angry if you talk to them like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that for me, I think some of the words I would use to describe how like I wish or want to show up in parenting, which is not mean I always do, are things like authentic. And so there is a way in which sometimes you're like, oh, you're in your like, I'm going to soothe you now voice. I'm also so angry, but I'm going to use gentle words. But you can feel it. You know right now that like what I'm thinking inside is not like, oh, you're having big feelings. I'm thinking like, shut up and get out the door. We're 10 minutes late. Like it's already there in like in the space. Um, and so I often think more about being like authentic and like relational with kids, and just this idea that like I impact you and you impact me, and we get into things together and we can repair things together. Even though I think that I think if we like found a hardcore definition of gentle parenting, somebody would say like there is space for all of those things, but what comes up for me is the uncontained child of like, no, we don't like to hit our brother. No, like it, rather than like, stop it. Like, you're not hitting him right now. We're done here. Um, but I know that's
Did you
like the
just say
image that's
no,
happening on
though,
that.
Olivia? Don't say no.
Oh my God, am I not supposed to say no? Is that like a,
No.
oh,
That is not
what do you
Every
say?
sentence is
no.
yes.
You have to say, I can see you really want to hit your brother. Let's hit this pillow instead. That is just, don't say no, Olivia. You have to
Oh,
say, I can see
yeah,
you really.
I failed at gentle parenting already.
No, but it is so true. It is, yeah. Yeah, and I feel for a lot of people what I see. For a lot of people, it feels to me when I see them or attempting at what gentle parenting, I can just say, you're fake. And your kid knows that you're actually really angry and you're just trying there. And kids pick up on that. Like it's not like if I'm going to sit there and say, I'm so angry, but I'm going to say, I can see you're angry and let's just, take a breather together. And I can't really get there, because you have to stay with your child. You have to work through it together instead of just saying, I have had enough for now. I'm just walking away and I will be back. But, I'm really angry right now. And yes, it is also because of what you did. Um, yeah, but
Yeah.
that's some people will say it's gentle parenting, but other people are just like, no, you can't leave your child. No, you can't leave your child because you will say no to the parents, and that's the really hard part for me. We can say so many things not to our kids, but they will set very strong boundaries on what parents can do with their children. You understand? Like
Mhm.
that's what I feel, that infantilizing things. It's almost like kids don't really get it, and you have to model them, but they get more than we think they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When I was in the thick of navigating this like new we get our information from Instagram, like I am old enough to remember a world where like that didn't exist, right? Like, and my kids are old enough that like when my oldest was born, Instagram wasn't what it is now. And some of my younger clients, like they're like, what? Like where? Like what did you scroll about? Like what were you reading? And it was like that it wasn't there. Like my Instagram feed 10 years ago was still like cats and food and people traveling. Like that's what Instagram was. And it wasn't parenting. It was not parenting. Um, so when I was in the thick of trying to navigate this, like the term gentle parenting was very new as for me as a young parent. And I thought I had to prescribe to it, right? Like I thought that it was the only way to undo or redo the ways that elder millennials, had been parented. And there really was no other roadmap, right? And so it was very much like you start every sentence with yes, or you make it positive, or you do this, that, and the other thing. You stay with them when they are emotional. No timeouts, absolutely no hands-on parent contact. And my child was about 5, and he was having a meltdown, and I was trying to be with him, and I just kept getting the sense that he didn't want me to be there, right? Like he wanted to do it on his own. And but I dismissed that within myself, and I continued to stay and to kind of push for this, like, let's calm down together, let's take a breather, let's be together. And after it was all said and done, we both blew up. It was horrible. Neither of us wanted to be in this situation, but I thought I needed to be there. And after, he said something to me like, "You can leave me alone." Like he's
Mm.
so emotionally intelligent. And I just said, "Is that really what you want?" And he was like, "Yes, I want I want to be alone to process my big feelings. And he's going to come back, or he's going to call me back, even when he's 5. When he means I want to be alone, he means like for 5 minutes. Like, he wants me to be like close enough that I can hear him, but like not so close that I'm like in his face about it. Let's breathe, blow out the candles. Like he literally told me he didn't want me to prescribe to that part of gentle parenting.
Yeah. And that in the end of the day, we really have to like follow their lead as well as our lead. And I find with a lot of these prescribed books, and then they're telling you, if you do it like this, like if we're diving into impossible, but your child's going to be successful and they're all going to be great and they're all going to be so, in tune with their feelings and they're going to be such great communicators. But not everybody is going to communicate feelings the same way. Not everybody is going to work, but somehow there's a lot of that prescribed, this is the script you have to follow and this is how it's going to turn out, and the promise of then having a well-regulated child, which, I think what neurodiverse children is now like 1 in 5, I think, like, so we're not taking that into account because we're all like talking about neurotypical, but now I see a lot of language when it comes to gentle parenting. All neurodiverse children are now the same too. Like you have to do it this way, and it is just so sticky because who are you then in this process? Like what Olivia said, who is the authentic parent here? They're not there because you're just following, what, I don't know, Chantal says on an Instagram post, who, only shows you pictures of when things go well or when it goes bad, and then has a beautiful story how this was actually a life lesson, and not like us when we have a mess that we're just, what happened? I don't know what happened here. There's no life lesson here other than this really sucked. This was just a mess. Something exploded.
And
There's no Chantal, by the way. I'm just thinking of a name.
everybody's like, what Chantal gentle parent is this person? I should follow them. I think in some ways what feels like is happening with like the intergenerationalness of parenting is that when a lot of us are trying to gentle parent with our children, like, yes, we're trying to offer them some kind of safety that maybe we didn't have, but I feel like we're also trying to like gentle parent ourselves, like all those child parts. And I always think like, oh, you can just do that. But usually what happens is in the quest to gentle parent, I'm going to give this to my kids, we're so mean to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like I'm like, but you don't gentle parent yourself. And I'm like, no, that's a bad deal. That's a bad deal. Because what has gotten lost, I feel like sometimes in the like the overcorrection of like, I had a really angry parent, and so therefore I'm not ever going to get angry. That's not really how it works. But we've lost like the ability for regulated anger.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not allowed to exist. And I actually think that the big emotions, like our own experience of being able to like have a range of like, I think of like the window of tolerance, like there's like up and down in that. Regulated anger, regulated disappointment. Like there's so many things that we have just put in the bucket of like, just don't feel that. Just don't feel that. Or if you're going to, you can express it to be like, that's making me really grumpy right now, versus that sucks. That sucks. That's it. We're done. Like, which is not mean and not calling names and not exploding and going away and never repairing. It's not any of those things. But I don't know. I'm thinking about what my family calls airport Olivia, who is a nightmare. And last year, I took a trip to Mexico with my partner and my son, and we brought his friend with us. And what was interesting when I think about authenticity in parenting is how my son prepared his friend for airport Olivia. my like 15-year-old son, which is we're going to go to the airport. My mom's going to be a bit of a mess. She's probably going to cry. She's going to be a bit grumpy and snappy. You know that that's like not what she's normally like. It's just airport Olivia, and like on the other side it'll be fine. And I was like, oh, that's so, he knows me, and all the things he said are true. But also it's fine. The airport Olivia like exists.
Yeah,
Yes. Oh my
I
gosh.
yeah,
Mhm.
Kayla, go.
No,
Talk.
no, Annika, that was all I was going to say. I was just like, I was just receiving that as like unapologetic acceptance and authenticity in stressful moments.
Yeah. And I am just really and that's the thing too, what I see a lot now, and I don't know whether that's gentle parent, because I think we are in the first generation that we really plan our children when we're going to, and not everybody, of course, there's always oops babies, but we're like, okay, we want this, we can have some say, there's a lot of access to fertility, people are having children by themselves in different ways and building different, but that puts so much expectation then on the children and on who we are going to be, how we're going to show up with our children. There is no like, I'm quote unquote only going to have two, so I have to do this right. I don't get like a second chance. I'm not going to have four like my mom had, or I'm not going to do all that. So having that all planned out, but also then that huge, we're living for our children because I did the traveling, I did the partying, I had like, interesting relationships with different people. I worked through all that. Messy part of me is gone. We're going to do the serious. I'm in my mid 30s now. I'm going to have two kids, paced 2 years from each other. By 40, I'm done, and then we're going to have the kids, and then I'm going to be like a full blown grown up. And there's no place for the big emotions. I am going to live for my children. And my children are going to have the childhood I never had. They're going to have the extracurriculars I never had. They're going to have the vacations that, I was always dreaming of. It's going to, oh, and that's another thing I'm really, the people that travel the world with their children, and then, but children are so flexible. They can do everything. My kid, when my eldest, we were living in Jordan for 6 months. And we were living with my mother-in-law, and she was 2.5. And then we came back and to Canada when she was 3. And, you know, fine. And she's like, we're never going to move again. And then went to school when she was 4. She told the teachers that she had been homeless before and that we were
Is that a phone
refugees.
call home? Was that a phone call home?
And that we were refugees. Yeah. So I am just like, no, that's not all kids. And I hate how people are like walking around and then tools like gentle parenting are almost giving you the promise like you're going to have well-adjusted children. You can battle everything as long as you gentle parent, as long as you're but it doesn't give any space for who you are, what you're bringing in, who your child is, what they're bringing, what their needs are, but also about the world, what's happening in the world. They can do all the gentle parenting, but if your housing is insecure, and if you're working 3 jobs and you're really just trying to manage things, gentle parenting is not going to be the solution. You're going to have a hard time. Yeah.
I read an article. Now I'm not gonna be able to find this. I think I read an article. I came across this somehow. I'm like, I'll try to find it, which was around some research that was done during the pandemic and like anger towards children and like interpersonal family violence and such. And in households that had a lot of financial insecurity or precarious housing, when we had the rules around like you can't evict somebody right now, and then we like gave people
Mhm.
money because they weren't able to work, the amount of rage, stress, anger, abuse, like dysregulated anger abuse went down in those families so substantially because that base tension of Oh my goodness. I'm always trying to figure out how to survive. Was so significant that when that went away, people were able to show up with like a much broader range of like experiences, and it made connection much easier. And I think about that a lot.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's easier to be gentle when you have housing and food, like all those, like when you aren't constantly stressed around survival.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And one of my older family members had said something really interesting to me. Um, we knew that there was a big income gap between us, our household, and their household, and she was expressing some tension and stress around finances. And I just kind of looked at her and was like, I I don't understand this. Like, there is a very large income gap here, and I don't understand. And her words to me have sat with me for almost a decade now. And she said, Kayla, it doesn't matter the job you have or the job security or whatever. At the end of the month, we probably have the same amount of money. And so managing her debt load or their lifestyle or their expenses was very stressful for them. And they probably could have made some moves and changes within that, but that's not what the conversation was about. And it sat with me so deeply of like, we probably have the same amount of money. It's like, okay, so that stress of financial security can happen at every level, way more felt and way more polarized when we're talking about like low income families or people who have to work three jobs and these are just non-negotiables and realities for them. But that people who lost their jobs in the middle of the pandemic who are making six figures, that level of stress in a household when they have to maintain a home and a vehicle payment or whatever, um,
Hmm.
that stress is so impactful on the whole family.
Or when parents bring like a history of financial trauma, even if they are making enough, it can never feel like enough. And I often will talk about, I watched the Paris Hilton documentary that she did around, anyway, her story is actually quite interesting, more interesting than I was anticipating, because she was essentially like kidnapped and sent to these like really
Hmm.
intense, work camps for bad kids. Um, but she was almost a billionaire, and it was not enough. She lived with a constant fear of running out of money and not being able to financially support herself. And I'm like, $1 billion is not enough.
It's not enough, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But the urgency around the survival urgency
yes,
really gets in the way of connection where it
Hmm.
can.
yeah, yeah. And so for our listeners, and some of them will be avid gentle parent ambassadors. They might not still be listening, but let's just say they are. We just tore it all apart. Um, what what realistically, in reality, and I admit I get caught up in this too. What do parents do about this like constant consuming and influx of information around the right way to do it, always feeling like it's wrong, always feeling like it doesn't matter? I think the same financial metaphor that you just made, I've seen happen in gentle parenting. Like a parent will just tell me a really successful moment and it won't be enough. They will
Hmm.
still feel like a shit parent.
Hmm. Like, I don't really know, but I think as a society, I think first and foremost, we have to have more compassion for each other and for ourselves. I find that the narrative, and I know Facebook is for old people, but there's still a lot of active Facebook groups. Like, people are calling uh, family and children services or children's aid or whatever on anybody now that doesn't look like gentle parenting. Can we get it in ourselves to just have more compassion? If we have more compassion for others, we can also start having more compassion for parts in ourselves that we're just like, okay, this might be me, because I feel often the narrative is, I don't want to know this person. I don't want to know, like, if I have compassion for that, that means that I'm not a gentle parent thing. Gentle parenting happens in a vacuum. It doesn't happen in real life, like the 100% and everything. It happens. And if we are perfectly parenting our children, we're not preparing them for an imperfect world. So the moment you start, and that's what I always say with parent coaching, the moment we mess up with our children, it's actually one of the only roles as a parent that no teacher is ever going to fill, no uncle or grandparent is ever going to fill. Is just saying, I what I just did or how I reacted to your feelings, that wasn't really the right way to do it. I'm sorry. I really apologize, you know? But being able to repair that and then just really trying to model how it should be have been doing differently, and but not being scared of making the mistake and actually looking at it at this is one of the most important lessons that we're learning together as a family. Our children are going to be scarred. They're going to need therapy, but everybody needs therapy. Like,
Yes.
in some way, or peer support. I'm just throwing it out. But everybody needs some kind of support in life because we're not supposed to live in a bubble. We're supposed to live in community. We're supposed to share. We're supposed to, walk to the well and get the water and complain about, how we're not feeling well. But we don't have these spaces anymore that we can do that. And there's so much, of that. It has to be perfect. But no, you cannot show up with your 22-year-old at their job interview because you're scared that the manager is going to hurt their feelings. Unless there's special need. I'm going to say that people are, oh, but yeah, if your child has exceptionalities and that is appropriate in that situation, yes. But like for, the quote unquote typical child who's 22, so they're, on the brink of adultness, you probably should be able to let them go. They probably should be able to deal with that because you have done worse with them in the past, and they are able to label that, work through it, and you don't have to be scared that it's automatically going to be a trauma because you were traumatized.
Yes. The
Yeah.
automatic, that like
Yeah.
default, like everything that I do is a potential moment for trauma. Like that mindset alone, so damaging.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like in like to yourself, like to put yourself under that microscope that every single moment is that future casting, Olivia, that you talk about, like parenting in different timelines, right? Like I'm parenting now to avoid my child having to go to therapy when they're 22. I want my kid to go to therapy. I want them to be
Yes.
vulnerable enough and safe enough and assured enough that they will reach out for either paid or unpaid or peer support in the future.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah. And it makes me think about um, if people want to identify as like a gentle parent, like please know that you get
yes,
to be that. Because I almost want to separate the idea of I want to orient to my children in a gentle way from gentle parenting TM, which is like here's the language and don't say no and all those different pieces. Because somebody once said to me that like, oh, you're a gentle parent, and I was like, does you mean because I'm kind to my children? Like, is that what this is? Are they lumped together that like if I'm kind to my children, that means I'm a gentle parent? Because that's not how it feels for me. Um, but there's a piece that I think both of you were alluding to, are brought up for me in the relationality, which hopefully is like a long relationship we have with our kids around our distress when each other is distressed. And there's something that as my kids got older, because I have one adult child and one almost adult child, that felt really important to me around tolerating what happens when we disagree, when we are disconnected. And it does often feel like a lot of the like, I need to co regulate and soothe my child when they're younger is like, I actually just can't tolerate the distress of their distress. I need their distress to go away, which feels different than orienting to your children in a way that is like thoughtful and gentle and like, because then you do get to like not show up always great, and then repair. And I think I didn't realize that until we got to the teen years of how important like the messages around communicating with my kids around like we don't agree on that. I don't want you to do that. I don't like that. Um, you have to start making decisions, like your own decisions. This is not safety things, and you're going to have to tolerate that. I don't like it. I would do it differently, and like you are going to have to tolerate that, and we can do it because as you grow up, you're going to have to make more and more decisions on your own, and I may or may not like them, and you may or may not like my decisions, but how do we stay connected within that? Um, which also feels like a really important piece here.
Yes. The,
Mhm.
the tolerating of the distress is something that I witness a lot in my clients, and once they are able to tolerate either their children's distress, their partner's distress, their own distress, the pressure to gentle parenting sometimes just like fades away, right?
Mhm.
Because I think one of the gentle parenting TM tactics is that you must always be regulated, and your children must always be regulated for you to be doing well, right? When in reality, regulation is the ebb and flow between states of regulation and arousal and stress and all of that. And your life is supposed to feel like this, because if you're just like this in straight baseline all of the time, nobody ever gets upset, nobody ever is distressed, we always talk like this and everything is okay, that is masking. Like that's not actually feeling the real emotion that's right in front of you.
And it's not saving our lives, right? Like when your mother-in-law comes at the door or says, "I'm there in 15 minutes." And you need to you need to feel this stress in order to clean your house better than you could do in 20 hours, and suddenly you can
Yeah.
do it in 15 minutes. It's literally saving. We need to be dysregulated because we
Yes.
can pull our kids from the streets when a car is coming. If we're just like, "Oh, I'm all you don't have that adrenaline rush." Literally, we need it. It keeps us safe. But I think we're so scared. We're so scared to feel feelings because it's constantly labeled. It's constantly said, "Oh, yeah, but this is how much, and only then, and only when your girlfriends you can, you can have like laughter and like peeing your pants kind of fun, and not around your kids because they're not going to really see you as the adult who is in charge and who can kind of like coach you through life." I think it's really, and I think that there's also really as a very racist aspect to gentle parenting as well, as in, it's really only white people that do it right in the end of the day, right? Like it is often, you know, the vast majority of people that are blogging about it, but a lot of like cultural things, like for example, I'm married into an Arab family. My kids always complain they're so loud, they're so present, they are like in your face, and I'm just like, yeah, yeah, it doesn't look like gentle parenting, but at the same time, most of their children are going to grow up to be valuable citizens, and they're going to do things, and they're kind people, and it is not a recipe that is just going to give success to everybody. It doesn't work the same way. And like Olivia said, there's some really important things there, as in good tools for people, good ideas to work around, but you have to make it your own. It has to make sense to you, and you don't have to follow the handbook from A to Z. You pick and choose. If it feels to you, let it go. It's not for you. If the language doesn't align, change it up. You know, there's a lot to be said to curse in front of your kids because it's very good language. Actually, there's a lot of research around cursing, and a gentle parent would probably not
Phew.
do that. Yeah, there's a lot of language. It's actually very rich language. They say there's a lot of, expression in that. And do you want your and also for us, I just read like research that all this anger that especially mothers or those who identify as mothers or not fathers, let's put it that way, uh, we are living with a lot of anger that we're not showing, and it's actually aging us. So if we're constantly, oh, of course, let's, make a fort in the bedroom right now because that's what you want to do. And I want to like expose you to all these different textures and tactile experiences. And I'm tired and I'm
And it's
really fed
8:30
up.
at night.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah, it's
really want
eight.
you to go to bed, actually.
Yeah. Or you still have to work. Yeah.
And I don't want to.
And I
And
don't want
but like I don't, there's a lot, I can't remember who speaks about this, but like finding ways to like connect into fun and play with children that like are actually fun and playful for you.
this.
I don't want to build a fort at all. Um, and that's just another really big piece here. Like everybody knows about my hatred of like imaginary play. I don't want to be a dog. I don't want to do that. Um, but a lot, because like I often talk about being an inside person, and I would find other people who like to go outside to take my children like camping. I don't want to go camping. I don't ever want to go. I don't just want to do that. But the piece around again, authentically, like it's easy and authentic for me to connect in with you when we like, I don't know, when we are like playing board games together. Like that's it. When we read side by side on the couch, like that is like a meaningful way, and like talk about what we're reading. That's meaningful for me. But going to the park and like, watch me, watch me, watch me, watch me. Like that is not, an easy way for me to connect with the kids. So I can do it, but I have different expectations of myself when I'm like, come put your sunscreen on, don't throw sand. Like it's just a really different experience. And I will often reference Donald Winnicott's book, The Good Enough Mother. There's just one line that I really like from that book, which is your kids want to get to know you, not
Mm.
the like you that you think you are supposed to be in parenting. They actually really want to get to know you. And in the same way, we can hold lots of people with complexity, like our partner, like partners, our loved ones, our friends. If right from the get go, you are also allowed to be held with complexity in that relationship, I think that it actually makes it like safer over the long term.
I've never read that book, but I do quite a lot of parent coaching, and that's one of the things I always tell people, and they're just like, I don't really like doing these things. And I said, how can you bring in things that you do like? If you don't like to read like the same book over and over, why you don't bring a book about sloths? If sloth is a topic that you like. Enthusiasm is infectious, especially with children. If you're just like, I really like that, I do it all the time. My kids, I completely brainwash them. Not really, but like it isn't like if I like something and I'm really passionate about it, it's interesting to hear something. I'm not going to do constantly going through the same books. Let's read something that I like to read. Why not?
Yeah.
And it
Because
doesn't,
that, oh, sorry.
yeah. And that's the getting to know parts, like to really value yourself as well. You don't have to be, that one-dimensional gentle parent. You are so much more. There's so much more to you. And I am sometimes worried when I see those gentle parents that are really, wearing it almost as their identity. I've seen it on Instagram bios. I'm a gentle parent of 3 kids. And I'm just like, "Yeah, but there's more to you. Where's your passion? Where's the thing that you don't like at all? Right? Like, where's that showing up?"
And often I find that people who are, I think we talked about this last time, if they feel like they didn't have a very strong parent map, and it's
Mm.
really scary, this is where throw in any label here, like unicorn parent, dolphin parent. I know there's a lot of different like language out there, but I find that that's when people really like want to hold on tight, is because they have a feeling of like, I don't know what I'm doing, and this book seems to be backed by research, and so I'm gonna like follow this book, hence like Gentle Parenting TM, versus the other things we're sort of talking about, where you get to also be you.
Yeah.
Or at least act with you.
And I find that a lot with people that are new to Canada as well, that they're just like, I don't understand this. So they're either, and that's what I'm really scared of, like when we're talking about the mother mafia or whatever they call, like, and it's not, and I'm not saying gentle parents are, but there are people who are both, to put it that way, right? Who are very judgment, that they are not going to public spaces with their children because they are scared that people will be making comments, making phone calls, labeling them because they are louder, because they know that their children have certain behaviors and they don't really know how to deal with it, or they deal with it in a way that they know it's not really accepted. So literally, I know people that don't go to malls with their children because they are so scared that people will call on them because they let them wear a leash, for example, because they're just so scared of losing their child. But if you're
Your child
also,
isn't
yeah,
neurodivergent, needs to
yeah,
be on it, or they will walk
yeah, but
away or away.
i- if you're black and you don't speak the language very well, that is a very scary thing to do. So then they're staying home and they're not showing up in the early years center, and they're not showing up, and then they go to school, and then the school is going to say, your child hasn't really been socialized. And that is really scary because we become so narrow-minded in what parenting should look like. And I'm not saying this is gentle parenting. These are just the general parenting messages, and I have worked for public health for a long time, but there are huge consequences to co-sleeping with your child if you are a young parent, if you are a young parent who is not white, if you are somebody who is unhoused at the moment, who has to stay in another kind of accommodation, there are huge consequences to it. And then all the, you know, other people can say, oh, but I sleep with my child all the time. And yeah, it's easy for you to say that, right? Because, you live in this fancy house and you've got everything. And even if you have some financial issues, you're stable, your situation, you're not waiting on approval from other institutions, whether or not you can access certain services.
The
That's not
surveillance.
the
We often talk
surveillance.
about
Yeah.
that, parent surveillance, how we surveil ourselves, how we surveil others, and what happens when that surveillance comes from
And then, yeah.
systems that have power to um, impact your family system. Yeah. But like, this is the piece around, I know when we joke about, being on Instagram and stuff, and like how silly and sometimes ridiculous it can look when people are like doing everything right. But I often think that the trickle down of how that gets interpreted, the amount of fear that comes from like, this is the right way to parent. Look, I backed it by science. I think it causes so much anxiety. So much anxiety.
Yeah. And it's a brand. People don't understand that this is a brand. These are not real people. Everything is done for, it. And even the people that are really, I find the people that are, showing their authentic selves. Yeah, it's curated authenticity. Oh, look at what a mess my house is. I don't see pubes in the sink. I'm just being honest. Like it's like,
Totally.
yeah.
You mean on all the Instagram?
Yeah, like
On
they will say, "Oh, look what my mess in my house," and I'm just being compassionate to myself, and I'm looking at that mess, and I'm saying, "I've seen worse. This is just paint." You know, you know what I mean, right? Like it's very.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm not saying that like if you go to my bathroom now, like anything, but I'm just there's not a lot
I'm
of.
coming over right now with your mother-in-law to see how clean your house is.
My mother-in-law passed away. We're fine. You can come.
But it's true. This idea of like how are like other parts of like parents allowed to show up. I think that we might be, as a parenting generation, really confused about that, around how to integrate all the different all the different parts. Because I think that like most people would generally align on, I don't want to be rough with my kids. Most of us would probably be pretty clear on that. But how that gets played out in the complex of like our own histories and our own life stresses and our children's personalities. And the way that like sometimes it's like easier with one kid than another, just based purely on
Mhm.
personality. I feel like we're trying to figure something out right now that is really, really hard.
And as parents, we usually know. Yeah.
Sorry.
And as parents, we usually know what would work with our child, but then we still want to believe in that myth of if you do this, it's all
Mm-hmm.
going to be better. Just pay for this course. She's going to tell you.
I'm going to give you the roadmap. I'm going to give you the framework to
Hmm.
managing this. Like not feeling it, not processing it, managing it. And I think that's like language that we use, and like never before in parenting history have we had so much information coming to us. And I think people were like looking for the how to. You know, if you've gotten to this point and you're still listening, you are looking for the how to. You know, as a counselor and coach for moms, I would say do less of looking out or scrolling or seeking the answer, and spend time with you. Spend time
Mhm.
without not without screens. I don't mean to like villainize screen time, but like spend time just with you, feeling in your body, in your brain messages, in like just literally looking at your child and taking what they're saying for face value without trying to diagnose or fix or prescribe or change or manage, just like seeing them right now for who they are and looking in the mirror and seeing yourself for who you are and starting to quiet that noise of what you should be doing or what everybody else is doing or what everybody else is valuing, and just like Olivia said, just be you. And I know the word authenticity is getting a bit of a rash online right now as a buzzword, and how do we actually do it, and you know, it's like boundaries was the buzzword for a while and now be authentic is the buzzword now. But really, you check in with your values and then check that against what Gentle Parenting TM is trying to get you to do. For some people, it aligns. For some people, there's like a magic match there, and you're going to be able to do it, and your kids are going to respond, and you're going to get your partner on board, and it's going to be awesome. And for other people, there is not a match here, and the values is more important than what Gentle Parenting TM is prescribing you to do.
Mhm.
Yeah. And what feels important as you say that is just how many times I've seen what happens when often a mother takes on, like, I'm going to really dig into gentle parenting, is that she then becomes the gentle regulator for the entire household. And that just looks awful.
Mhm.
I'm now regulating like everybody around me all of the time, and don't even ask about like what's happening for me in this, but like also we're often regulating partners and partners' relationship with children, and
Yes.
just like trying to get everybody to be regulated all the time.
And I've seen that go one step further out from her, is then trying to regulate how everybody else interacts with the child or her or partner or whatever that looks like. And then those people are also being asked to prescribe to that 3-step process. And if they don't do it, then there's like boundaries and no contact. Like in the like the most
Mhm.
extreme
Mhm.
cases, then it's like I can no longer have contact, or we can no longer have contact with mother-in-law because them refuses to prescribe to what we are prescribing, and I am now the gatekeeper for gentle parenting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I see it in partners relationships as well. I see a lot of parents that say, oh, my my partner can't put child to bed because, you know, they don't align with my way of like doing bath time. I don't like the way they do bath time. So, and they don't want to follow my way of bath time. So I have to do it all by myself because I have it all thought out and this works for me. And then the thing as well that I often will try to like talk to parents about that children need different people in their life. They need people in their life that communicate messy. They need people in their life that are very loving and giving, and because this is the real world, you're not going to have a copy and everybody is going to deal with you in the same way. There are going to be people that, they might not constantly, go over your boundaries, but they might push the boundaries a little bit. And that's actually great if you have people in your life who can do that in a way without you feeling like, oh my gosh, this feels very icky. It can be hard sometimes a little bit, but not like we're not doing anybody any, there's no benefit in having only people around that are centering everything around the child, which I find very scary, very scary. Because in the end of the day, I hope to have a long life where parenting is not one of my, main activities throughout the day. This is a phase in life, when parenting feels like 24/7. I'm always going to be a parent. But I hope that one day I'm sitting in a senior house and I'm just watching weird TV shows and I don't have to worry about whether one of my kids is having an emotional breakdown. I hope they have people in their lives that they would turn to before they would turn to me.
Yes. I heard
Yes.
I heard a story recently of somebody who was talking uh, about she's adult children, and um, the way she was framing the story was, my like adult child, I am always her first call. Isn't this an amazing relationship that we have? And I had such a different reaction to that. And I was like, if I am constantly the first distress call for my adult child, I feel that would make me really anxious to be like, where are your people?
Right.
Where are your friends? Like where are the other people in your life to support you right now? Like, I definitely do not want to be the only emotional support for my children. That makes me really nervous, or that would make me really nervous for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm just holding that for that ideally we want our children's ability as they like grow for them to go into deep connection into like other relationships. I don't want to be the only one who can regulate my 30-year-old.
Oh, please no. That sounds like hell to me. Like,
Sounds like hell. I'm actually imagining a real life nightmare of like not being able to like live my life, like you said, Annika, as like an older person, just like enjoying my non-acute parenting years. That actually sounds like fresh hell. Actually, if
yeah.
I was, I want to be on the list. I want
Yeah.
to be the person who's like informed, who knows my kid and who knows what they might be celebrating or struggling with. Right? Like I want to be on the list, but
Hmm.
at at an adult age, I don't. I also don't want my children. I don't want them to feel the pressure and the expectation that I would be the first line, like the first phone number.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe sometimes I am, but the idea of like,
Totally.
and also your partner is there, and also your friends, and also like,
Yeah.
also all the other things that
Pets.
exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think too, like for a lot of parents, like I when I do like work with my clients in parent coaching, I always say I want to put the parent back in the parent coaching. We're not childing here. And really putting yourself in there again, and please don't lose yourself. Don't lose anything you like to do. If you always enjoyed, ultra marathons, it might look different. I wish I would know somebody who does ultra marathons. It seems really, really dreamy to me. But I think that there's ways to bring that back in. If you, and don't lose your relationship with your partner. Don't lose your relationship with your friends. It's okay. I'm really bad at this. I'm just preaching to the choir, which me, because yesterday I was going out with my partner and we were just like, oh, let's do something. In the end, I said we still need to buy birthday gifts for the birthday parties. So then we went to buy birthday gifts for the birthday parties because I knew that it's anyway going to happen, and we were both not really in a great mood. And then he's like, here we are again. And I said, yes, there we are again in Toys R Us, which is
Hell.
hell, and it's too expensive. And I
If
always
only
just
you
look for
ordered
the
off Amazon, it would come right to your door.
because I don't, and that's what exactly what he told me. He said, why we didn't go on Amazon? And I said, I'm not finding stuff on Amazon. We're going to a store, we're going to get something. And then the thing, did you buy enough? How much did they give you? How much is this worth? Can we just, yeah, I'm just, there's so many expectations there. And then in the end of time, it took away from our partner to partner time because it
Yes.
never ends. And we don't let it end because in the end, we're parents now. We wanted these children. They are, the bane of our existence. We're literally centering our lives around them all the time. And we're not doing them any benefit by constantly doing that.
A friend of mine's mom, the line really stuck with me. I don't know when she said it. I think she said it to me after I became a parent. And she's a boomer. But it's a really great line around, I don't remember the context, but she's like, what I would tell my kids is like, you're not special. You're special to me.
Yes.
Special to me. But like in the world, you're not special. And I remember that really stuck with me because, again, this idea of like, I want everybody to be gentle with my kids, and I do. Oh, let me be really clear. I do. Like when somebody's hurt my child, like the violent thoughts in my head around like what I would like to happen to that person are like extreme. Um, but that really stuck with me in a way that like through the years, as somebody would come into my children's life, like one of my kids had a really, I really hated the principal. I don't even remember all the context around it. And I really put it back on them to be like, you are going to meet this person again. You're going to be in a position where somebody has like institutional authority and you don't want to do what they want you to do. You're going to be here again. You got to start figuring it out. Like this is a relationship that exists in the world that you're going to have some strategies around. And like the letting go of that with, I mean, this was probably in like grade 8, but the letting go of that to be like, hey kid, you're going to be responsible for your own relationships. You're going to have to figure it out is a hard piece to let go of when
Mm-hmm.
people are, jerk to your kid.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, having said what we said, and for the people who stayed long enough for the whole message, what is your favorite go-to resource, skill, tactic to not, for those who don't want to prescribe, where can they go? What is your favorite thing to tell people or resource to give them when they are in this place of, I don't prescribe to this, but I still want to be a good parent, whatever good means to them? What is the thing that you tell them?
What I tell parents is to write down what do I want my child to be when they're grown up, and then figure out whether or not what you're doing right now is actually getting them there. Because a lot of gentle parenting is not really, like, in the end of the day, most parents want their children to be kind humans, right? Who are citizens and do things in this society and are active in that way. And then you can let go of a lot of the stuff. Just really say, is this what I'm doing now? Is that actually helping reach my ultimate goal? Or am I just adhering to what I think I should be doing because people tell me that? And then, how long your children watch TV during the day is actually not going to stop them from being kind humans, right? How you know, yeah, like actually it could help. Depends what they're watching. If they're watching really, really good like TV shows, I'm not labeling good as in good, but like TV shows that talk a lot about feelings and stuff like that, it can actually make them more empathetic, whatever that word is. It's beautiful. I can type it. Um, so that's the thing. Sit with yourself. Parenting should not always be hard. It's way easier if you follow your gut a little bit more, borrow things from things that feel aligned to the way that you want to do things. Use your language. Use the richness of the things that you grew up with. Not everything. For most people, there's people with the most traumatic childhoods. For most people, there are still some things in there that feel important. It's okay if your childhood was 70% a mess and you don't want it, but there's 30%. It's okay to borrow from that too. It doesn't mean that your child is going to be you. None of your children are going to be you. And you need help. Everybody needs help. And it's a skill for your children to learn how to ask for help. Because if you've never done it, it's maybe because your parents never did it as well. I don't know.
I will pick back off that a little bit. I think one of the things, again, the answer of like look to yourself, because one of the lines I'll often give people is, what does Annika think about that? Like, and so in those moments of like, am I doing this right? Am I like, what do I do with this? To be like, what does Olivia think about that? Because it's just good to know what you think about it. Even if it's, I don't know if I really believe in this, but I want to test it out. I'm like, that's pretty clear. Even if it's, I really believe in this and it's going to work and our family's going to be calm all the time now. I'm like, okay, so that's what you believe about that. At least you know that going in. And I had one more thought, which now, of course, I've lost. Or I use the metaphor sometimes of like, when you're taking in like parenting advice or parenting information, to think of it like trying a new food. And so if you're like at a restaurant, you've never had something before, or like somebody's made you something that you've never had before, you're going to like sit with it. What do I feel about this? Oh, this is a new texture. I'm kind of into it. I don't know. It's bitter. I don't really like bitter. You might take a bite and say, gross, spit it right out. This is the best thing I've ever had. And you want to swallow it whole. But imagine like just that space of time of like when it's in your mouth and your palate to like just explore it before you just like swallow something whole that you've like heard about in the parenting space. So that you can like take what you need and leave the rest.
I love that metaphor of like treating it like food, and when you don't like it, you don't have to eat it. You don't have to swallow it. You don't even have to go to that restaurant anymore. Like, and that's the beautiful underpinnings of like authenticity, or having your values at the forefront instead of a particular parenting philosophy, is that you get to lead, right? You get to lead in from your values or from your heart or from your gut, whatever that looks like. And I pretty much guarantee that if you do that, you the natural good positive consequence is that you feel good enough. You feel like you've done the best that you could that day. When you're prescribing to a parenting philosophy or a parenting roadmap and you fuck it up, then you have shame and guilt and all kinds of things about like how you handled it or how you moved through step A through B, right? And when you lead from values, or you lead from curiosity, or whatever word you want to put in there, I have found that has made the biggest impact for parents who have anxiety, or depression, or like just constant distress or stress in their bodies, that arousal, that stress response. That leading from values or leading from authenticity is the antidote to all of that.
Yeah. And the nice thing about the food metaphor is like I have tried multiple times throughout my life to like tomatoes. I don't like tomatoes. I just don't like them. But you're allowed to like tomatoes. I like love that you want to eat a like tomato cheese sandwich. So what works for us doesn't always work for others, and that's okay too.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
another thing, and that's completely not related, and I don't want to make this longer than it is, but you don't have to like your kids. You love them. That's fine. There's ages and stages, and that you're just like, I don't really like this person. You're not cruel. That's okay. You love them. Most of the time, you love them. You don't have to like them. They can be assholes, all of them. We can be too. That's
We
okay.
can be too.
We can be
Yeah.
too. Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
just it.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and I think there's a lot of, and I think the gentle parenting, a lot of it comes from that guilt and shame feeling, as in, I don't like my children enough. I'm not doing enough for them. I don't like this behavior and I have to fix it. No, it's okay. Don't have to like it. Deal with it. We have to respond in some way, shape, or form. But maybe your child is always going to be quote unquote lazy, or quote unquote like, you know, smelly, or not caring about personal hygiene the way that you would like to them to. That might just be them, and fighting it might not really be helpful all the time. Sometimes it goes, sometimes it's a stage. You just have to work through it. And sometimes it's just them.
Absolutely.
They're not like
fill
your
those
life
I could
blanks.
talk,
partners.
Yeah.
I could talk for
I
hours. We
know.
could hours. And so at some point we gotta clap the movie clapper and say cut.
No, that's good. I have a meeting in 4 minutes, so actually this is perfect timing. But thanks for having us. I hope we don't cause your gentle parenting community to send you like angry emails.
No, no, that's exactly why I want to start having these conversations, and I've got a few more lined up for the fall because it's a perspective that I want to shed light on. That there isn't just one way. There are so many other ways, and if you prescribe to gentle parenting and it feels good and it's the right medicine for you, then excellent.
Mhm.
But if it's not the right medicine for you, then there are so many other different ways to do it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you're wrong or bad or that your kids are going to be sociopaths. Like that's not a guarantee in any
Yeah.
philosophy ever.
Yeah.
So
Some serial
Yeah.
killers had great parents. I'm just saying, like, it happened. And also, your gentle parenting doesn't have to look the same as your neighbor. You can have a
Yes.
completely different interpretation of it, and that's valid. You don't have to then start an Instagram account to get validation about the way that you're doing it. If you want to, that's great. But, if you want a gentle parent and this is what gentle parenting is to you, and it feels good, go for it. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's way of gentle parenting.
100%.
absolutely. Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye.